Tired of living in mushrooms?
Yep.
Sometimes I just feel blue.
Sick of an overprotective papa?
The forbidden forest is forbidden. You're grounded.
Dang, Papa Smurf be bossy.
Then maybe it's time to try something new.
I saw someone who looked like us.
What if this means the Lost Village isn't a legend?
If there really are other Smurfs out there, we need to find them.
We're in this together. And by together, I mean me and you. And those guys, but mostly me and you.
What?
Don't be weird.
On April 7th.
Hefty? Brainy? Clumsy? Oh, that's not even convincing.
Enter a secret world.
Wow.
Filled with unimaginable beauty.
It's like a workout for my eyeballs.
And beasts.
Don't eat all your rations.
Stress eating!
Around every corner.
We're not in Smurf Village anymore.
Take cover!
Hey!
Have you ever seen something so beautiful?
We've encountered a rare new life form. They are at times very intimidating.
I'm really freaking out, you guys!
We need to warn you about the evil wizard Gargamel.
Girls, protection mode.
Dang, girl Smurfs mean business.
What's so funny?
That's what I call talking out of your butt.
Huh?
Oh boy.
Smurfs, the Lost Village.
I'm leader of the Smurfs.
I happen to be the leader of the Smurfs.
Oh boy.
Whatever you say, Papa Thing.
One more time for Mandy Patinkin, guys. Let's hear it. Mandy, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for
Honor
having
to
me.
have you here. I'm a big fan. Big
Thank you.
fan. So, Smurfs, The Lost Village. You get to play Papa Smurf in this film. What was that like for you?
Well, I actually didn't even know who the Smurfs were when they called me. So Kelly Asbury called me up and asked me if I want to play Papa Smurf. I'd heard of the Smurfs, but I wasn't very up on it all. And then I sort of got a crash course on the whole thing and understood that they were trying to recreate Peyo's original artwork and the style that he created. And then they walked me through it, and I began to voice Papa Smurf. I'd stand at a microphone session after session, and they would write different things, and then I'd improvise, and they'd put it all together in a pencil sketch and look at the little story they created. Then they'd call us back in and do some more. And this went on and on and on.
This wasn't your first time voicing in an animated film, was it?
No, I've done some others, but
Right.
yeah. So it's great fun. You're in front of the microphone, and no other actors are there, which is probably would be more fun if other actors were there. But so I'm often reading the other parts so that I get a sort of flow of it. And it's just you can just be a fool. You can just be out of your mind and act insane because A, you are, and B, it's a cartoon, so there are no rules, and you're allowed to do whatever you want.
Are you a diehard Smurf fan now? Or did you go back and watch the other movies? Are you gonna watch whatever movies come out? Are you reading Smurfs books? Do you have a poster?
Well, they certainly sent me all of that, so but I haven't.
So whether you make the choice or not, it's there for you.
I don't want to go to Smurf jail for answering the question wrong. I intend to look at everything.
Now, you also portray.
If you give me a grandchild, I'll do whatever you ask.
You'll be able to tell them the entire history of the Smurfs, I bet.
Yeah, then I will, exactly.
No, you're very well known as Saul on Homeland, which is a much more reserved character a lot of the time, and in most of his conversations that he's in. When you're doing something like Smurfs: The Lost Village, which is a bit broader, what sort of tools are you bringing to that experience? What sort of acting tools are you bringing?
To Smurf or to Homeland?
Smurf. We'll get to Homeland.
Okay. Well, you just kind of wake up and brush your teeth and make sure you have on your deodorant, because you might sweat from all the hours in front of the microphone. And then you just screw around. They put the paper in front of you with the words, and he tells you what the scene is, and you say those words, and then I make up other words, and we just keep going around and around and around. And there's nothing to do. You're just, they bought your voice. So they don't want anything but you to sound the way you sound. And, you know, maybe it's a little more heightened because you can be a little goofier than in, you know, a high tense drama where you basically just grunt, you know.
Is that how you would define Saul a lot of the time?
No, he doesn't even grunt. He just sits there and listens. Pardon me? Squints, yeah. You know, he's a listener. Look, I'm a papa. You know, I have two boys, Isaac and Gideon, and they're not boys. They're 30 and 34. But I like being a father, and I like playing a father. Even on Homeland, there's an aspect. Even though I'm her mentor and her boss, to some degree, on certain occasions, other times I'm not the boss because she comes and goes from the agency. But I like the relationship between children and fathers, and students and teachers, and who's the child, who's the parent, keeps switching. And I think that's very much like life. My boys are often far more the parent figure than I am at this stage of life. And I'm very lucky because I get to work with, most of the people I work with are in their 30s, the actors that I work with. And they teach me a lot. They teach me a grace that I might not have learned in my years. Claire Danes has a beautiful grace on the set in front of, you know, you spend 12 or 14 or 16-hour day trying to work your way up to a certain scene, and then someone's cell phone goes off, or a truck drives by because they didn't lock up the traffic at a very quiet moment, and it might ruin the take, or a light blows. And she never loses her cool or her temper. She never blames anyone whose phone goes off. And I saw that happen a couple times, and I just went, my God, that's the way to do it.
Were you not that way when
I would lose my temper on occasion, and you know, not yell at people, but just get upset, and people would feel bad because, you know, I would get frustrated, and because that was a take where it happened and it got ruined. And I just learned from her that it doesn't matter. You know, they'll get another take and they'll do something in the editing. And what I have learned over the years is, particularly when you think it goes great, whether you're making a Smurf voiceover or whether you're doing Homeland or the best picture ever made, it's inevitable that if you feel like I had a great day, this couldn't have gone better. I was on all sixes. I couldn't have been better. And then you see it later and you look at it and you go, that wasn't very good at all. And then the days that you feel like garbage and you feel like I missed it, I wasn't concentrated, I couldn't hold on, I just wasn't good. You look at that stuff and you go, my God, that was some of the best stuff I think I'd ever done.
So
it makes no sense.
There's an odd nuance, or there's more nuance to mistake oftentimes. I think directors find that in the edit room all the time.
I agree. I think both in life and when you're doing a play or a film or voiceover or concert or recording, anything, conversation, meeting someone you love, your family, your children, your daughter, your son, your wife, your friend. The mistakes are the gold. That's where you get everything. I always pray for mistakes. I pray for the accidents. People go, oh my God. And I remember when I was a young actor, I was doing a movie called Ragtime, and Milos Forman was the director, and the cinematographer was telling me to hold my hat this way, and Milos was saying do this and everything. In the middle of this long take, and we were between Avenue A and B, and the whole thing was made to look like the turn of the century, and there were hundreds and hundreds of extras and animals and horses, and something, I didn't do something somebody told me to, and I stopped. And because I thought, you know, you wanted me to do this. And Milos said, Mandy Cuckoo. No. Listen, Mandy Cuckoo. Everyone will tell you everything. And then they tell you to do this, they tell you to do this. Listen to them and then forget about it. And anything, don't ever stop. And that's when, you know, I never forgot that. I was a kid when he said that. And so particularly if you're doing a big scene and you have a lot of words and you mess up the words or you forget them or you can't, you know, well, that happens all the time. I don't know. You ask me a question, I can't think of an answer, or I get lost, and then 5 seconds later, something else happens. Well, they do different takes, and the camera's not always on you, and sometimes they'll cut to a little bird or another person, and then they'll use something that happened after the take that you messed up because you just give up, and then you're real. You're not trying anymore. I always find, both in life and in art, when we try too hard is when we're not that great. Yeah. When we just show up and are present and listen, we're at our best. And
do you find it's more that way on a film or television set than on a stage? Because you do an incredible amount of theater work, and I often find when I go to the theater that the theater to me seems like, because it's all live, for lack of a better way to put it, that it requires a much more command of craft and intensity of focus than maybe shooting a scene for 5-10 seconds and then cutting around and shooting it again and again.
Well, I always regret that the audiences never see the process, because for me, the process is the best part, meaning we get together for the first time, actors and the director and the writer, and we read it. That's the first time you hear it in those moments. It's the first time I meet you or I say hello to you. And, well, that's how, if you're the other character, that's part of our history now, and that's how we meet. And, or you say a stupid thing to me. That's part of our history. Or you make a joke that isn't funny. That's part of our history. And so then you rehearse. And I find actors that always do it exactly the same, particularly on stage. I like to mess with them. I love to throw their timing off. I love to put a wrench in the works. I like to shake it up. I don't want it to be the same, particularly night after night. The words are going to be the same, but we come to it tonight to do the play with what happened during the day today. We come, if we're doing a play tonight, last night we sent missiles over to Syria to blow up planes, supposedly, to retaliate for sarin gas being used on innocent individuals, and men, women, and children. So that act, if I'm doing Hamlet tonight, or anything that I'm doing, a comedy, is in every thought that I have, in every word that comes out of my mouth. I can't play a scene tonight, even in a film, if we're shooting a scene of you and me talking, without thinking about that, without thinking, well, where were the retaliatory acts and the concern for all the children who died in the Aegean Sea in those flimsy rafts trying to reach sanctuary, leaving a horrific war-torn situation where that same man, Assad, dropped bombs in their living rooms of children I've met who now live in, thank God, Elizabeth, New Jersey. But there are thousands and thousands of children locked in limbo on the Serbian border, in Greece, in Turkey, all through the Balkan route, who have no legal options to move to a life that we have. At our worst, the worst day of our life, when you lose your job and somebody robs you and your car blows up, still a better life than them. Where's the concern for that? So all of that, I never go to the theater or go to work or come out here to talk to you before I look at that news with our little toys in our hands. I want to see just what happened right now, because everybody's looking at it. And I want to know what we are all thinking. I don't go do a concert, because if I sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow that night, you know, the opening words that Yip Harburg wrote were, when all the world is a hopeful jumble and the raindrops tumble all around, heaven opens a magic lane. When all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a rainbow highway to be found, just behind your window pane, to a step beyond the sun, just a place beyond the rain, somewhere over the rainbow way up high. Screwed up a few of the words, but that song is about every single day of our life. It's also about the day when they find the cure for cancer, or your baby is born, or you told a loved one was going to die, and then they call you up and they go, I'm not going to die. They were wrong. And so that's the beauty of the theater. That's why no performance can be the same if you're working with people that are really there. And those are the actors I love to work with, both in the theater and in front of a camera. And I use the phrase dangerous. And by dangerous, that means I trust you as my children used to say, infinity %. Because I know you can throw a dagger at my head and it will stop a microgram from my eye. That's how much I trust you. But I will let you do anything or say anything. Or all of a sudden you used to do that line like that. I love it if all of a sudden you just walk away. And all of a sudden the scene's alive because I'm used to giving you an answer real fast. The audience feels that coming and they think somebody made a mistake. And the place just becomes alive. What's wrong? Is he? And so stuff happens. And I long for those accidents, as you spoke about brilliantly earlier. I beg young actors to, and all of us in life, to just wish for the accident. Wish for the trouble in our life. That's the only time you learn anything. You don't gain any ground when it just goes smoothly. We only learn when we're having a rough time. And everybody thinks, oh, God, we don't want that. You do want that. The corniest thing in life is, you don't get rainbows unless it rains. And this business of being uncomfortable, that everything has to be right and perfect, and if it isn't, you got to fix it. That's insanity. You don't have to fix it. You have to learn to be uncomfortable. It's part of being alive. Everything's not just, chocolate cake and cookies and candy and great sex and falling in love. There's loss and confusion and bad weather and wars that make no sense, people that are deprived of freedom, justice, and dignity. There's a lot of things. So is the answer to kill the other person or to learn to be together? And I wish that if we could all learn from the beginning that, like a little kid falls and hurts his knee, what do you say as a mom or dad? Let me kiss it and make it go away. Kiss it is fine. Don't tell the kid it's going to go away. It hurts. Learn to be hurt. If everybody could learn to be hurt, people wouldn't try to fix it with drugs and alcohol and food and quitting and running away. And literally, you shoot up. And what's that called when you shoot up? It's a fix. Stop fixing everything. What do nation states do when there's a problem? They kill people. How about learning to live together? What about in the Middle East if all the Israelis and the Palestinians could figure out a way to just stop killing each other, stop shedding the blood, and be uncomfortable? Be uncomfortable. You pray different, or you eat different, or you walk different, or sound different, or different music. So what? Be uncomfortable together. And then the world could maybe find a way to be at peace. So that's who Papa Smurf is.
I was waiting. I tell you, halfway through, I was hoping that was going to be your punchline, man.
Yeah.
Tailor-made for that.
Yeah.
I have to ask, you talk about how the actions of last night could affect or would affect your performance on stage today. And this is maybe a stretch because obviously the major plot lines for Homeland this season came from prior to the election and prior to who the actual president-elect was. But it does seem like this season of Homeland was potentially more affected by the day-to-day that we saw through the campaign versus previous seasons of Homeland. Was that the case? I mean, specifically in regards to what we what the administration refers to as alternative facts and what we with brains refer to as outright fucking lies.
I was wondering if you were allowed to use the F word.
That was my permission for you.
Thank you. I should have asked earlier. I didn't know how to talk for a while. So, but, well, without a doubt, our writers come in with more than a sketch of what the season will be. On April 24th, the writers and Claire and myself and our head director will all go down to Washington, D.C. For 5 days, 4 full days, more, 12-hour days of meetings with the absolute top brass of the intelligence agencies, the intelligence community, retired, also people in current employment, and the most powerful people that were in power or are in power, including Pulitzer Prize writers, critics, etc., of the actions of our government. Part of what we do in those meetings, see, you also have to realize why they spend the time to come to talk to us. We are their calling card. We help recruit people to the agencies. These shows all do, whether they're medical shows or legal shows. They help recruit people into professions that people watch. I can't tell you how many people, when I used to do Chicago Hope, I've had several people come up to me and say, I became a doctor because of watching that show. Thank you. And I go, my God, you don't think about that when you're going to work, that somebody's going to become a doctor and save people's lives. You just didn't think about that. And so we will be in these meetings, and some of these people spend a tremendous amount of time and effort telling us what they want us to write about. We're not as interested in that as them answering our questions. And the key question that we're after, first, we have an idea of where we're going. So we want to test that idea. Is that truthful, first and foremost? Is it legitimized in the system and what happens? What are the problems with it? And then we want to know, what are you most concerned about? Where do you feel the hot spot in the U.S. is and in the world at large? I tell you, you don't have people talk about Homeland, say how prescient it is. Your writers are so amazing. And, they're good, they're great. But all you got to do is get up, open your eyes, and walk outside. Pay attention. It's right in front of you. It's not a magic trick. It's right in front of us more than we ever wished, every second. So what happened in this season, season 6, which finishes this Sunday night, is the final episode.
Great season, by the way.
Well, we all thank you. We're happy it is. We didn't know it would be too many of our friends, viewers, people that are coming in saying it's our favorite. Certainly the first season I thought was extraordinary. Others were very interesting. But people are coming up saying this is our favorite. So let me just tell you what happened. We had certain ideas. We expected, as pretty much the whole world expected, a female to be the President of the United States. And that didn't happen. So, but the writer's initial intention wasn't necessarily to create a female president-elect / president, but to create a compilation of the 3 characters of Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders, and their natures, if possible. Then the election happened in the middle of shooting, I think, the 5th episode. And everyone was quite surprised. Also quite surprised by the fact that what immediately surfaced was a completely antagonistic nature toward the intelligence community between the president-elect. I mean, a violent confrontation, virtually. Not just words, but, ignoring people. I mean, really harmful.
We compared them to Nazis at one point.
Yeah, he does a lot of things.
I think he probably also compares a lot of people to Nazis at certain points as well, just simply because he has a lack of things to compare people to, I think.
Yeah. So we went back to the drawing table, our writers, and we had to adjust the narrative. We had the sock puppet / bot storyline was already birthed. I don't know if it had been revealed yet. I think it was about to be revealed in the 5th or 6th episode. But immediately it became clear that this was a central focus. The Russian question of a foreign government coming in to interfere with our most sacred process of an election, and which is still beyond the front pages of our papers and all over the world. This is right in the Homeland wheelhouse. And you can bet that we'll be all over it. And you can bet it's not going away in 10 minutes. You know, it will be there through, you know, we're already commissioned to do season 7 and 8, and I'm sure it will be there. But what for me became the two most powerful characters of the whole season, most unexpectedly, were, and not to say anything you know, negative about our extraordinary company of actors, you know, across the boards, from the guy who has no lines to the person who has every line in the show. The two characters that rose to the top of the system for me this season were false news, fake news, and the truth. I think it became the focus, as it is the focus for all of our lives every day right now. And it's an industry led by guys like this Alex Jones type character that's the same as Rush Limbaugh and a variety of other guys, compilation of all those guys. And then it's like, I remember again, I go back to Milos Forman when I was doing Ragtime. I was very intimidated by powerful people. And Milos said to me, and I was, I don't know how old I just met him. I was 19, I think I was 26, 27 years old. And I think Milos said to me, Mandy Cuckoo, you think there are gods, Mandy Cuckoo. There are no gods, Mandy Cuckoo. It's a game, Mandy Cuckoo. It's a game. Well, Milos was right. And it is a game, and it's big business. And tweets make headlines, and they sell magazines, and they run 24-hour news cycles. But it's not a game to people who are losing their lives. It's not a game to the most vulnerable among us, the refugees, who have no legal options to flee from these war-torn areas. Families just like ours. It's not a game when our governors and congressmen and senators and president want to ban individuals because of the color of their skin or their religion, when it's the fabric of our nation. I wouldn't be sitting here with you today, and most of you wouldn't be sitting here, except for African Americans who were brought here unjustly, and Native Americans whose identity was stolen from them. Not identity, but
lives, yeah,
lives
land.
And the rights to this land that was theirs first. But the majority of the rest of us are here because our ancestors were welcomed with open arms. We are the products of refugees and immigrants. And we can't forget that. And to see the world at large, not just the United States, but the world at large, not be working 24/7, 365 to make sure these people get to sanctuary, to refuge, to have a good, free life. When you meet these families, these beautiful children, these extraordinary human beings that are just like your families, you are lost and mind-boggled. And it is painful. And it's so important, the game of it, that Homeland plays and shows, and like Shakespeare says, puts it up as a mirror to our nature. The game of it is a lie. How do you get elected in this country or other countries? Because it's a global epidemic right now. It's the oldest trick in the book. You create an enemy, and then you vilify a group of people. You make that enemy a terrifying entity, and you tell the populace, if you elect me, I'll keep you safe from them. But let's not forget some facts. Facts that aren't presented on a regular daily basis for our diet, as opposed to tweets. And the facts are, simple facts. Since 1975, 3 million refugees have, and I'm just talking about the United States, 3 million refugees have come in and been resettled in the United States. Since 9/11, 900,000. Not a single terrorist incident has taken place by one of those refugees. Not one.
Also very few refugees as well, considering what we could have taken in.
Very few. The Obama administration in fiscal year 16, which ended in September, the new one began in October, took in about 85,000. Obama pledged 110,000. That's worldwide refugees, not just from Syria or Afghanistan, worldwide. And Trump's administration brought it down to 50,000. Before Trump was inaugurated, already 37,000 had been resettled, leaving 12,000 plus to come in of the whole world to be resettled in this country. That's not good enough. They're taking 10 a day on certain days through Hungary, through past the Croatian border, 10 a day. And oftentimes they lie to you. They tell you you're there and you're not in Hungary. You're left somewhere else. You die. You don't make it through. They rip you off. And but even before they closed the European border with Turkey on March 20th, 2016, there were no legal options for refugees to come then. And so they took it from 0 legal options to -0. And the world needs to get together to work at this. And I just want people to understand something else, because the fear, the trigger that's used for all of us in lies, and this is what Homeland plays on. And what that character, that Alex Jones type character plays on, tries to destroy reputations, and it affects human lives. It is the vetting process. That's the excuse. We've got to improve the vetting process. That's why we have to ban these people from all these nations, and to keep us safe. Well, first of all, I studied this like a master class because I have access, because of Homeland, to the top people like Michael Hayden in the intelligence community and many others that I'm hooked up with. The United States is the gold standard of vetting. As I told you, there wasn't a single terrorist incident by a refugee of all this. The vetting process takes 18 months to 2 years. You don't even get in the door to begin that process unless the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commission of Refugees, I think in 9 different countries, goes and interviews you as an individual or a family and decides that you can even make it through that process of 18 months to 2 years. And then the process never changes. You are vetted the day you get on the plane, the day you get off the plane, a year later when you want a green card, 5 years later if you want citizenship, and it never ends. So the bottom line is, those who are refugees, particularly at this time in this country, are the safest people in this country. And if you want to talk about making America great, they are the fabric of our nation, and bring in more, because refugees are our history, and they are the people that make America great.
Absolutely. Let's hear that, please. I have to turn it over to the audience for questions in just a minute. But I'm curious. It's obviously it's not odd to make this a passion or a cause that you want to be associated with or work within. But when did it start? When did it start for you? When did you recognize the refugee crisis, which, as of right now, is the greatest refugee crisis the world has seen since, I think, pre-World War II, right?
Yes, yes. I was shooting season 5 of Homeland. The first episode of the season was set in the Syrian refugee camp. And then the story went on from there. And at that moment, this crisis was exploding. 125,000 refugees were trying to get across the Balkan route into Europe. And we were making a fictional version of the hell that these people were living. And I was going insane. Every day, spending 14, 16 hours doing our show, reading it, living in this fictional hell, while the real world was a hell 10 times worse. Children dying by the thousands in the Aegean Sea, you know, in these boats. Families being lost. And no one coming to the aid. Even then, the only option was smugglers. And that's the only option now. There are no legal options. Imagine the world isn't attending to that. And so the day that season finished filming, I jumped on a plane and flew to Lesbos, Greece, hooked up with the International Rescue Committee, and started working with them, meeting the extraordinary people, all practically in their 30s, who each one of them could run the world. They set up little countries. And any of you out there that are looking for something to do with your lives, join these NGOs like the International Rescue Committee. They are leaders of the world. It is thrilling who these people are. They inspire you beyond words. And then I met the people and the families, and I met the boats, and you know, children were put in my arms in very fragile condition. And then I come back to my life, and this year, literally the same thing. And this year I took my wife with me. The day I finished shooting season 6, on February 22nd, on February 23rd, I was on the plane to Europe, to the refugee crisis. Took my wife. We went back to the same place in Lesbos, the camps, Karatepe, etc. And then I went further. I took the journey through the route, which was Serbia, Belgrade, the Croatian border, Germany, and reunited with a family that I helped get through. And it brings us to show business. why am I doing this? A play, a television play that I'm in, ignites my humanity and my brain into understanding something I wasn't paying attention to. You know, you hear about it, it's a TV show. It's make-believe. Or maybe it's real. But, you know, I'm just going to go on with my life and worry about what I'm going to get for dinner. And I couldn't go on with my life. I was paying attention to it every day because of the show and reading about it and hearing about it. And so I was engulfed by it. And luckily, my job was not allowing me to forget about it. And the blessing of being in something, whether it's Smurf or a TV show or a play, is it gives you a platform. Some people hate you, don't want to listen to you. They vilify me, and other people will listen to you. But it is the singular greatest privilege, from my point of view, in being an actor, to have a platform, to be the voice for people in this world who have no voice. There is no greater privilege. And people say to me, the biggest question is, well, I'm not in a television show, or I'm not in a movie, or I'm not a wealthy, you know, business person or a wealthy politician. What do? You can do everything in the world. You can contact your local representative, congressman, senator, tell them how you want them to vote. You could go to your church, mosque, synagogue, temple, and participate and welcome these people into your community that are being resettled. You can go to your school in the PTA and raise your hand and say, this is what we want to do. You can find out, just in the International Rescue Committee alone, there are 29 centers across the United States of America. You can go to one of those centers and say, I'd like to meet a refugee family that's being resettled in my neighborhood. I'd like to invite them to my home for dinner, or to our temple or synagogue or mosque or church. I'd like my kids to have a play date with them in the park. I'd like to take them out for dinner. I don't know if they've even had dinner in years because of what they've been through. Welcome them to your community like someone welcomed your ancestors. You can't imagine how wonderful you'll feel from this connection. And struggling with the language, because they can't speak your language yet. They're really working hard. And so this business, a show business, you know, of doing entertainment, has given me such gifts in my life, relationships with such wonderful people to work with, material that speaks to things that I care so deeply about. Plays like George Seurat, Sunday in the Park with George, and working with a relationship of my life, you know, with Stephen Sondheim and James Lapine, who wrote that, and wonderful directors I've been able to be associated with, and the gifts that I've been given. But no greater gift than awakening me to be able to do this humanitarian work for people that are begging just for your ear. Just listen to me.
Absolutely. First question.
I'm pretty impressed with what you've just said here. What I love about the fact is that you're really daring, and you're not afraid, and you're informed. You know, as an executive producer of the show, because I see you have an executive producer credit, you have a lot of, you know, really interesting ideas that you just presented here in a very short little snippet, but it's still a lot of great ideas. How many of these ideas do you get a chance to present possibly as storylines? Because you do have a show that you said affects people, it impacts people. You know, you mentioned about, you know, throwing the Palestinians and the Israelis together and just telling them, you know, they got to get along, and just seeing what happens. How many of these ideas do you actually present because it's so passionate to you to try to get it in the storyline?
Thanks. I present all of them, and I do. The storyline we had that took place in the West Bank in the 3rd and 4th episode, Alex and I have been talking about that. If somehow in our fictional world we can create some possibility just of dialogue, let alone even a possibility of a choice of a solution to an unsustainable situation, I can't think of a better use of any platform on this planet, you know, let alone a TV show. How about just a conversation with one other person? And you know, you have to understand the value of these conversations or interviews like this, because people watch it who you can't even imagine. Little kids. And that little kid becomes Martin Luther King Jr. or Gandhi.
It's great that you don't take it for granted, because it is TV, but you realize what it is.
Well, you know, when you get to be 64 and you've met a few people along the road, all of a sudden they say to you, thank you, I became a doctor because of you. Or I went into the intelligence community because of the work I saw you do. And they may have saved a life because of it. And so you start to appreciate, you know, I remember when in my music with my piano player, and some days we'd be depressed. didn't feel like working. And then we'd say, what about the people who call up or write these beautiful letters, say, your music got me through my cancer treatment? Or so, and you go like, it did? Oh, I didn't even think of that. And then you start singing, and literally with music, the air going in and out of your body makes you feel better. And so, you know, so I share these ideas with our gifted, I mean, incredibly gifted writing staff, and all of them, all the time. And one of my favorite songs ever is by Steve Sondheim called "Children Will Listen." But it's the children in all of us, you know, guys that are young like you and me. And so I believe that if you say what you believe in, the child in everyone will listen. And they'll do what they're going to do, or not. You know, so one of the gifts of getting older, I mean, really gifts, you know, it's not fun if your knee hurts, but it's really thrilling to know what you believe and to not be afraid of saying it and to be willing to take the consequence. You bet some people don't like what I say or disagree or think what this stupid actor's saying. You know, why didn't he go just act in his place? Anybody can say, free to say that. Is that why he calls you Mandy Cuckoo? No. I was too young for him to think I was I am cuckoo. It's a Czech expression of endearment, which is cuckoo. No, not cuckoo. It's you say anybody cuckoo.
Next question. I think this is going to be our last question right here.
Hello.
Hello.
Besides your humanitarian work and how it impacts people around the globe, how does it feel for you to impact the lives of children and their family members by being part of beloved children properties such as Smurfs, or for me, Sesame Street, because my first ever movie I've ever watched was Elmo and Grouchland, and that movie set me on the path of watching many movies that inspired me to become wanting to become a screenwriter.
Great, good for you. I take it very seriously, and it's a great privilege. Elmo and Grouchland was one of the most fascinating experiences I'd ever had, because you're working with the Muppets, and there were all these educators and psychologists on the set. So every single thing we did, in rehearsal or in each take, the whole team would come up to you and the director afterwards and say, you raised your voice too hard, you made a gesture that will be scary to a little child, because most little children are seeing a movie for the first time in this massive image. And even after all that attention, if you remember Elmo and Grouchland, it still tested too frightening to little kids, and they brought in Bert and Ernie so that Bert was afraid and Ernie calmed him down at every questionable moment. And with movies like the Smurfs, I love that it's a group of little people that learn to be a community together, that have parental figures that they ignore and don't pay attention to, and then mom or dad come looking for them, and they learn from the children, and then maybe the children learn something too, that they're a community that need each other, that they go through a scary journey into an enchanted world, as we all do, and they come out okay. I think the most important work you can do in the entertainment industry is the work for children, the very first things they see. And I look for it, and I ask people to please make me a part of those efforts, because if you can plant those seeds in a hopeful, optimistic way from the beginning, then you have a real chance.
Mandy, Homeland's season finale is this weekend on Showtime. When can people see Smurfs, the new Smurfs film?
Is today Friday the 7th?
Today is Friday the 7th.
Today's the day.
Comes out today. Mandy Patinkin, everybody. Mandy.